I think if somebody is making Nazi salutes, if somebody is being sued concurrently by two women for sole custody of their child because that person has not spent any time with that child, when someone is so severely addicted to drugs they can't get their shit together to show up to the White House without looking exceptionally high, I don't think that's the right role model for young men. So what I would ask to all of us is look at what money has done to us. That if someone can land a rocket on metal scissors or create a great AV, he's a genius. He's the wealthiest man in the world. But does that mean we should excuse depravity? Does that mean, unlike Bill Gates, he's not using his billions to help people? He's not planting trees, the shade of which he won't sit under? I think this is an individual who has literally come off the tracks, who is rabidly addicted to drugs, and is using his immense power to get people elected, and that too many of us excuse what is abhorrent behavior.
He has distractors. Scott's one of them. I get it. I would have kept that. There's a concept now that I deal with every day called Trump derangement syndrome internationally when I have to work in Abu Dhabi or in Zurich. And I get into a meeting and they want to go into a diatribe about Trump. And I say, this is a useless use of time. I'm not here to debate politics. I'm here to debate policy because we don't make money in politics as investors. We make money with policy. So if we could just use our valuable time together to look at the policy and see if there's an investment opportunity together. But I can't, and I don't care to get into debating Trump derangement syndrome. But what you just heard there from Scott is Musk derangement syndrome.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, got another pretty good discussion going on here. This time, we're talking about Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Doge, tax cuts, the big, beautiful bill, and a lot of stuff that's in between that. Of course, there's a lot to be discussed on these issues, so let's go ahead and get into that. But right quick, y'all do me a big favor and smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new around here, and follow my regular videos that we go over media manipulation, the news manipulation, you know, politics, and all kinds of other stuff. We talk about all kinds of different aspects, but y'all make sure and stay tuned to all that. Do me a big favor, look right below the video and click that join button. Sign up, become a member, help me deliver the best possible content I can deliver to you guys because, you know, the YouTube algorithm just doesn't like me for some reason. I know you guys do, so y'all make sure and do that. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can, and without any further ado, let's just dive into it.
Scott, as Kevin was talking there, story has dropped on the New York Times website that the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, has said today that the broad Republican bill, the big, beautiful bill to cut taxes and slash some federal programs, would add $2.4 trillion to the already soaring national debt over the next decade. And they're categorizing that as an analysis that was all but certain to inflame concerns that President Trump's domestic agenda would lead to excessive government borrowing. And I think the significance of that, I mean, it's a little bit more than even Kevin was outlining there. The significance, I think, of Elon Musk blowing up in the way he did is it does seem to render almost everything he was trying to achieve with Doge, which in principle seemed to me a terrific idea to try and take a swathe through government waste. I mean, you know, who wouldn't be against that? But if you're saving a few $100 billion by doing that, and at the same time, there's a bill, a big, beautiful bill coming in, which he now calls an abomination, which is going to cost $2.4 trillion on top of the existing debt, then it's pointless, isn't it?
Piers, thanks for having me. And Kevin, nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you, but I don't think we've met. Yeah, this is nothing. I would argue that this big, beautiful bill is nothing but probably the biggest transfer of wealth from poor to rich, from young to old, and from the future to the past. Kevin mentioned small businesses like him. I've started and run small business. We're very sensitive to interest rates. And when you get to a point where the interest expense on the deficit is greater than your defense spending, nations go out of business. Nations aren't conquered, they go broke. And this type of fiscal irresponsibility, such that Kevin and I can have a tax cut that removes somewhere between 8 million and 13 million, depending on if you're listening to Republicans or Democrats, from the rolls of Medicaid, and creates this continued bipartisan, irresponsible approach to our fiscal management. Yeah, George Washington to George Bush, 7 trillion in deficits. And since then, we've racked up another 30 trillion. And let's be clear, it's been both Democrats and Republicans. But until at some point there's an adult in the room and we get our fiscal house in order, all we're essentially saying is we want our children to have higher mortgage, credit card, and student loan interest payments and have a more difficult time starting businesses. So I think Kevin and I both agree this is irresponsible. I would argue that Republicans' solution to this recklessness is to cut more funding across the most vulnerable. And yet corporations have their lowest tax burden since 1929. The wealthiest 25 Americans are paying an average tax rate of 6%. And I would also take issue, Kevin, that portraying the IRS as some sort of oppressive army. DOGE wants to cut the IRS by 40 to 50%, which will inhibit our ability to collect taxes that are owed. No one's showing up and harassing anybody. They're collecting, there are supposedly somewhere between $200 and $600 billion a year in what's called the tax gap. And these are the taxes that are legally owed that the IRS doesn't have the ability to collect because they are understaffed. For every $1 you invest in the IRS to audit the 0.1% and collect the taxes that are actually owed, you get $27 back. So essentially what the Republicans have done, in my view, is said, we're here to serve the 1% and defenestrate and emasculate our ability to collect taxes on them. And Democrats, the top 1%, pretend to care and clutch their pearls privately in dinner parties while going along with this because they know they're about to get wealthier at the hands of this tax cut. Put another way, the top 5% are going to see a tax decrease. The bottom 95% are going to see a tax increase. And the biggest tax increase is going to be on future generations. They're going to have to pay back these irresponsible deficits.
You know, I just love this argument. Go right ahead, Democrats. Continue to spout nonsense about, hey, let's make everybody pay more taxes. This whole idea that the wealthy don't pay their fair share is nonsense. I love this graph. I use this graph all the time. This shows income taxes. Look at that for a second, okay? So, yeah, anything over $730,000 a year, you can make the argument that it's disproportionate or whatever, but they're still paying 37% income tax rate. Like, hang on, you can't make the argument that the rich don't pay their fair share just because they make a vast amount more than the bracket says. I'm sorry. No, that's just folly. It's nonsense. It's lies through manipulation. That's what that is. People pay their fair share, for crying out loud. With all the reductions, those people at the top, yeah, making under a certain amount, yeah, you don't hardly pay any taxes at all. And that's the very same people that are arguing to make the rich pay their fair share. Oh, this is nonsense. But the argument, yeah, taken away from the IRS and all this, yeah, Democrats, go right ahead. Continue to make that argument because people are going to see that and like, I don't want to get audited. What are you talking about over here? So this guy is just damaging the Democratic Party. This is why they're in turmoil right now. They're just in utter collapse, chaotic collapse mode right now. And Democrats are not doing anything to stop the collapse. As a matter of fact, I love it. Let's keep going.
The IRS, I have no problem with them collecting their taxes. In fact, I don't consider them an enemy at all for small business. I work very hard through many of my companies to make sure they're compliant with the tax code because nobody in a small business can afford to be audited. It's just too difficult and they don't have lobbyists. They have to just make sure they comply. What I don't want to see happen is a change in policy. Forever, you've kept your records for 36 months, whether you're a big or small business. And that's the way it's been in perpetuity. And it's also been in perpetuity that there is no statute of limitations on investigating fraud. So there's no need for the IRS to put this overhang over businesses that actually hurt, I estimate, their value by 20%. Who's going to give them a loan when they have a multi-million-dollar lien on them through this perpetual audit for 9 years? So that's one issue. But let's go back to this idea of the competition of nations. The reason you want to be in the middle of the G20 and corporate tax rates is tax money doesn't have any loyalty. It's very promiscuous, and so does investment capital. It goes at the path of least resistance. And so if all of a sudden you hike tax rates to where you're in the bottom quartile in terms of productivity and competitiveness, the money just leaves the country. And you don't want that to happen. We don't need the lowest tax rates in America. We need to be in the middle where we sit right now. Just look at a place like Abu Dhabi, where it's 9% tax rate. That's why billions, if not trillions of dollars from around the world is going there and incorporating there. They're not incorporating in Washington, D.C. or Boston, Massachusetts, because we're nowhere near 9%. So you got to keep that in mind. And also, we can't get away from the fact that small business, 5 to 500 employees, create the majority of the jobs. There is no American economy if there's no small business. There's 70% of job creation. And so you don't want to do anything to hurt their abilities to compete and maintain their staff and grow their businesses. And when you start to mess with corporate tax rates, that's exactly what happens. We don't have a lot of flexibility. Now, I agree. Is there waste in government spending? That was the whole Doge idea. Yes, there is. Elon never found $2 trillion, but he only worked on it for 130 days. But the theme is now embedded in everybody's head, red and blue, that there must be a perpetual audit of government, and the brand is called Doge, and that's okay. But now this bill that is trying to get through, and everybody's taking a shot at it, and I'm one of them as well, this bill has to pass just to protect competitiveness on tax rates. Now, how we get there, this is sausage being made, and Trump is unusual as a president. He doesn't mind keeping the cameras rolling while you see everybody going at each other. That's what he's doing. So you're watching sausage being made, but I think there will be a sausage. Not sure it'll be by the middle of July, but I think it'll happen in August at least. And what it looks like, we don't know right now.
Okay.
I mean, I agree with Kevin right here. The whole idea of taxing the corporations through the freaking nose is insane. You're going to force these corporations to leave, as we saw in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Our manufacturing base was obliterated outright, and now we don't hardly manufacture anything as compared to how we used to, right? That's just crazy, in my opinion. If you want your economy to grow, you need growth. You need pro-growth tax rates. You need pro-growth policies to allow companies to expand. I just don't understand the left's position and Steve Bannon's position, actually, to tax the corporations, tax these billionaires, blah, 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 blah. What are you trying to decimate the economy? Are you trying to make it so hard for small business to operate under some sort of decent overhead that they just absolutely can't do that, and you're going to destroy the economy in the process? It's utter insanity, if you ask me. But what I love about what Donald Trump is doing with these tariffs is he's found a way to raise the taxes on corporations outside of this country by tariffs. That's what he's doing. The left is losing their minds over it when that is actually a policy position that they should cheer to the high heavens for that, but they're not. They're going after Donald Trump for it. Oh, you're taxing the little guy, blah, 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 blah. No. We've seen time and time again that these corporations are absorbing most of those tariffs. I've put that out several times. I've made, I don't know how many videos at this point showing, Ferrari, Walmart, blah, 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 blah. All these companies that are paying the lion's share of the tariff cost. They are absorbing those costs. What else do you want me to say about that? Donald Trump is taxing the corporations through tariffs, but he's not taxing American corporations. He's taxing the corporations from China, from the EU, from India, from all these other places where we have tariffs. These are good things, folks, and don't let anybody lie to you about, it's just a tax on the U.S. taxpayer. But that's just not true. And once again, I've proven that time and time again. But let's keep going.
And you've also got a multiple number of reports in newspapers in the last few days about his alleged extensive use of drugs, including ketamine and ecstasy and Adderall. Let's talk about Elon for a moment. He's gone out in a blaze of mayhem with these posts. But if you look at him and his brand, how damaged has he been by the last few months?
Well, it ends up here. So traveling around with your own pill box of Adderall, ketamine, ecstasy, and mushrooms while cutting off funding for antiretroviral drugs to pregnant women with HIV, such that right now, according to the Associate Professor of Global Affairs, Brooke Nichols, there are 1,500 babies being born HIV positive because of these cuts. It ends up that when the wealthiest man in the world is killing the poorest children in the world, it ends up that's bad for business. And you have European nations that have seen a decline in Tesla sales anywhere from 20% in France to 65% in Northern European countries. And in the US, sales are down 11%. Right now, Tesla's sales are declining faster than any automobile company in the world. So his brand, the Tesla brand, according to Ipsos, has gone from the 7th most aspirational brand in the world amongst the likes of Apple and Microsoft and Amazon to the 95th place. So I think people have decided, I mean, quite frankly, this distinct of the morality of what estimates are that 300,000 children have died so far because of the cuts to USA. Distinct of that, let's just talk about this economically. You're seeing a brand erosion, the likes of which we've never seen before. And quite frankly, the 75% of Republicans who these programs appeal to more would never consider buying an EV. So from a straight kind of business standpoint, to go so red pill and to be seen as this cruel and this coarse, distinct of the moral implications, distinct of the reduction in soft power that America enjoys, distinct of our reputation as the good guys being trashed. This is just really bad for business for Tesla.
So let me pose a question to the comment section right quick. So all you guys out there, is Donald Trump still beholden to his donors? Are you still going to go with that argument that he's beholden to his donors, that, oh, this is all just, he's doing it all for himself. He's just a greedy billionaire. Yeah, as a matter of fact, he's lost a lot of wealth. He has. Elon Musk has damaged his companies. Well, I wouldn't say Elon Musk did it, but the deranged left has damaged Elon Musk's companies. And Elon Musk knew this was going to happen, right? We're seeing protests at Tesla dealerships, for crying out loud. Do you really think that he's in it just to enrich himself? He's lost, I don't know how many billions of net worth. I mean, sure, you can make the argument, who cares? I don't care. But the argument is he doing it for himself? Oh, is he losing billions of dollars in net worth for himself? Or is he doing it and it was some sense of pride for the country, some sense of wanting to save this country? Because going down this path that we've been going down of just this insane spending problem that we've been having, all this insane money that's being thrown at these third world countries is just ridiculous. We cannot continue down this path. People are taking advantage of our goodwill in that sense. And then to blame, the problems of the third world because we're not supporting them enough is absurd. And then blaming that on Elon Musk is even more absurd. But let's keep going.
It's interesting. I was standing with him in the line to meet President Trump and the Emir of Qatar in Doha 2 weeks ago at the state dinner. And it was before Elon asked me what we were all doing lining up. And I said, we're going to meet Donald Trump for a handshake. And he laughed and went, I do that every day. I went, I know. I don't even know why you're standing here. Anyway, he thought it'd be funny to carry on standing there. And when he got to Trump, they both burst out laughing. But notwithstanding that, he was bored and he pulled out his phone and began showing me and a couple of other people just on his phone the Optimus humanoid robots and where they've got to. And they were dancing in this video clip. And it was one of the most extraordinary things I've seen. And he said, these are going to be the biggest thing in the world within 15 years. And everyone's going to have one, or rich people will want 10. And they're going to change the world. And they're going to do every boring thing in the world you could possibly wish them to do. And he had a kind of boyish enthusiasm for this technology. And that made me just look at him and think, why do you need all the aggravation of politics? It's like it's brought him so much aggravation. And yet, as you said, Kevin, he's a genius, really, in many other ways. I mean, do you accept, Scott, that he's a genius, or do you feel it's smoke and mirrors with Musk? Because when I watched him talk me through his Optimus thing, I just saw the 10-year-old boy who used to write programs doing it on a massive scale and loving that. Whereas I think he's really struggled with the criticism he's had in the political arena.
I don't think you can deny his genius. I'll use Starlink on my flight to London in a couple days, and it's a superior product. I owned a Tesla. But somehow we've decided in America that innovation and money replaces or obviates or excuses depravity. Cutting off aid to HIV positive mothers, deciding what veterans should get benefits, cutting off SNAP payments, which have shown to have a positive net return when people run out of money for food at the end of the month. I mean, I think one of the wonderful things about being an American, and quite frankly, for me, what it means to be a man and what I try to teach my boys is the whole point of prosperity is such that you can protect people. And I think the two of you are more impressed with Mr. Musk than I am. I think if somebody is making Nazi salutes, if somebody is being sued concurrently by two women for sole custody of their child because that person has not spent any time with that child, when someone is so severely addicted to drugs they can't get their shit together to show up to the White House without looking exceptionally high, I don't think that's the right role model for young men. So what I would ask to all of us is look at what money has done to us. That if someone can land a rocket on metal scissors or create a great AV, he's a genius. He's the wealthiest man in the world. But does that mean we should excuse depravity? Does that mean, unlike Bill Gates, he's not using his billions to help people? He's not planting trees, the shade of which he won't sit under? I think this is an individual who has literally come off the tracks, who is rabidly addicted to drugs, and is using his immense power to get people elected, and that too many of us excuse what is abhorrent behavior. I think his legacy is not going to be an EV or putting rockets into space. I think it's going to be unnecessary death, disease, and disability of the world's most vulnerable. That is not what it means to be an innovator. It's not what it means to be an American. It's not what it means to be a man.
Wow. Kevin, what do you say to that?
That's a tough criticism. And that's certainly the kind of controversy that surrounds him and has almost since he came on the scene at the PayPal days. He has distractors. Scott's one of them. I get it. I would have kept that. There's a concept now that I deal with every day called Trump derangement syndrome internationally when I have to work in Abu Dhabi or in Zurich. And I get into a meeting and they want to go into a diatribe about Trump. And I say, this is a useless use of time. I'm not here to debate politics. I'm here to debate policy because we don't make money in politics as investors. We make money with policy. So if we could just use our valuable time together to look at the policy and see if there's an investment opportunity together. But I can't, and I don't care to get into debating Trump derangement syndrome. But what you just heard there from Scott is Musk derangement syndrome. And I get it. And I think it's fair that he has those criticisms. But it doesn't distract or take away from the achievements the man has made so far and will make. And I'm an advocate for executional excellence because in the end, if you burn your calories trying to change someone who you know is not going to change and don't focus on the output that he can provide and the great solutions for mankind he has provided and hopefully will with robotics you talked about, then you are in the form of being dominated and controlled by a derangement syndrome. That's my opinion. And I've so far avoided that and I work a lot in Washington now. And I'm very, very fortunate to be able to work on a bipartisan basis because I represent entrepreneurship and job creation for small business. And that's bipartisan. Even AOC and Elizabeth Warren want to support that. And I can have my narratives with them. But when we get into Trump derangement, I shut off. And it's just a waste of time. And I think that's a waste of time criticizing, that he's not a man. I mean, I just find that. And I respect Scott. I mean, I respect his opinion. I respect all opinions, but let's burn our calories moving the needle forward is my view.
Okay, so Kevin is quite on point with this, right? The Musk derangement syndrome criticism, we'll call it a criticism, if you will, is applicable, very applicable in this because, he's touting unconfirmed reports of drug use and all this. Like, come on, my guy, seriously? That we're going with that route? over here, and then touting all this nonsense about USAID. Let's put it this way. Let's throw out a hypothetical. Let me ask you guys this in the comments section. Okay, so let's say there was a charity for, I don't know, sending money to a third world country to help people, that have AIDS. Let's just use that. Okay, now let's say this company, you come to find out that you donate all this money to this company, and only 10% of your donations actually make it to those people. The rest gets spent up in whatever it may be. Some people are skimming money off the top. You've got money being wasted on this and this and this, and for these people that work for this charity to fly around all over the place and blah, 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 and eat dinner and host parties and all this nonsense that they're wasting 90% of your charitable donations. Would you still want to donate to that charity? Or would you want somebody to go in and say, no, look, we got to stop wasting all this, so we're going to shut you down, then we're going to figure out where all this waste is going and why you're wasting so many U.S. taxpayer dollars? Which would you want? Would you want it just shut down, or would you want it cleaned up so that your charitable donations can flow freely to these third world and get people the help that they need? That's the derangement that these people have. That's what Elon Musk is doing with USAID. Yeah, they had to shut it down, because what do you do when you have a cancerous tumor on your neck? You don't leave it there and try to reform it, do you? No, you go and have it cut off completely. That's what we have to do with USAID. It has become a cesspool of waste, fraud, and abuse, to the likes of which that you can't just go in and clean it up. You have to cut the head of the snake off to kill the beast, for goodness sakes. And that's the argument, and I can't see any argument against it. Sure, are there some people going to be harmed from this? Yes, but are we ultimately responsible for these people's depression, for these people's situations that they've gotten themselves into? Like, are we responsible for the third world being the third world? Once again, and it goes back to the argument, like, okay, so let's say we just continue wasting all these U.S. taxpayer dollars on nonsense so people can skim off the top and get a little bit and enrich themselves. Okay, let's say that continues for how long? 20, 30, 40 years? All the way to a point where the United States bankrupts and then nobody gets that aid? Is that what you people want that are advocating for USAID and all this aid that goes out? We're still sending food aid and medical supplies, as a matter of fact. That was just paused. It's going now. It's getting sent out. Yeah, as a matter of fact, it is. They canceled a bunch of contracts to a bunch of NGOs that were wasting a bunch of U.S. taxpayer dollars. Where's the argument against that? You're just going to say that, oh, people are dying? Is that the argument? People are dying? Do you have anything besides trying to tug on people's heartstrings? Do you have a logical argument as to why we should be wasting most of the donations that we send out to the rest of the world? That's the question I pose to you guys. Let's keep going.
I think derangement, the term derangement, is usually something levied at people when they don't have a cogent argument to counter the arguments I'm making. I would call myself someone who's been infected with democracy addiction syndrome and is allergic to the type of depravity that these individuals are demonstrated. I generally haven't seen Senator Booker's gesture. I think Steve Bannon and Elon Musk both gave Nazi salutes. I've watched the tape a bunch of times. This is an individual who's decided there's a white genocide against Afrikaner farmers.
Sorry to interrupt so quick, but this is going to go a lot further than what you think. Okay, so that cogent argument that I just made, you mean to tell me that nobody has brought that to that guy's attention? That there's all this waste, fraud, and abuse? Or is he just ignoring this? And also, why haven't you seen Senator Cory Booker's Nazi salute, for goodness sakes? Why? Why? Because the tribalism of the corporate press, the vast majority of corporate press outlets are left-leaning, and they're not going to cover that, as a matter of fact. So I've got the clip to show you guys. Let's go with it.
Thank you. Thank you, California.
Yeah, so they're a little bit different, but they're close enough to say that they're almost the exact same thing. But the corporate press is absolutely silent on Cory Booker's Nazi salute. They're not calling it that at all. As a matter of fact, they're making an argument as to why it's not and why Elon Musk is. It is insane, folks. It really is, and it shows the bias of our mainstream narrative machine, because that's what they are. They are not news. Do not get your news from the corporate press, the mainstream news. No, because they're manipulating you and lying to you about almost everything. And no, he didn't just decide that there was a white genocide against the Afrikaner farmers. I'm sorry, reality just doesn't make that decision for us. We see what's going on, and we took action. What else are you going to say about that? Sure, is it not as bad as what they make it out to be? Maybe. But it's still pretty bad when you see all the evidence. Let's keep going.
I think he knew what he was doing. It might have been a tick, but he seems to be very disciplined about not making remarks or comments with respect to China. Whenever there's money on the line in a society where he may not have the same rights of free speech, he seems very disciplined. So, yeah, we have a fundamental disagreement. I do believe it was a Nazi salute or a Nazi gesture. I don't see other Republicans accidentally making hand gestures that remind them of the Third Reich.
But Cory Booker did. I mean, you should see it after this. Honestly, you would be amazed how similar the arm movement was and the difference in the way it was treated by.
Well, then it was wrong. I want to give you and Kevin this. If Senator Booker did this, he should be dressed down and say, you should never accidentally, errantly make a gesture that reminds people of the type of death and destruction that we incurred around an ideology that this symbol came to respect. And it just so happens that two guys who have a history of very conservative politics at a very conservative gathering accidentally made this gesture. They should know better. I don't know a lot of people accidentally making gestures that look like Nazi gestures at parent-teachers meetings. Both Senator Booker, I'll take you at your word, and Steve Bannon and Elon Musk should know better. And it gets in the way of, Kevin, what you were saying, his ability to demonstrate greatness. And I'll be honest, like Neuralink, I think what he's doing in Neuralink could have huge benefit. But the problem is we've decided in our society, well, is it a net good for society? If you could press a button, would you want him to go away? I wouldn't press a button. I think he's inspired the EV race. He may get us to Mars sooner than anybody else. He's created tremendous shareholder value and economic value. I wouldn't press that button. But the problem is with the word net. And that is, just because someone can put a rocket into space and create tremendous economic value doesn't mean they shouldn't be held accountable for or acquitted for personal behavior that sets a terrible role model for young men or recklessly damages the well-being of kids.
I'm sorry, but the only reason that's a problem is the unfounded claims, the smears against Elon Musk. Outside of that, where's the problem?
In other nations, and reduces our soft power. The reason why our small businesses, and like Kevin, I invest and run small business. I sold my last business for $160 million. A third of my clients were overseas. And one of the reasons I was able to do business with Samsung, LVMH, and Toyota was there was a great deal of respect, affection, and goodwill for Americans. I believe that when Americans walk into a corporate office, a small or medium-sized business, they are more likely to do business with us from a company offering the exact same thing from Turkey or from South Africa. And the reason why is despite the fact that we're perceived as obnoxious, aggressive, that we were the good guys, that people always felt good about America. And one of the best ROIs we have made in soft power was that $75 billion in U.S. aid. And to cut it off this recklessly and this cruelly, you know who's filling the void? China. And for the first time in history, surveys show that people around the world see China as a greater force of good than America. And to believe that doesn't hurt us, whether it's economically or working with our security apparatus to let us know when there's terrorist cells gestating or forming, to believe that it's not going to change the depth of the pools of capital that people want to invest in America. Generally speaking, I mean, Piers, you're British, and tell me if you agree with this. We have our issues. We make a lot of mistakes. But at the end of the day, Americans are seen as the good guys. And I worry that in the last 120 days, we've lost a lot of that.
Well, I think you've gone back. Listen, I completely concur. I love America. I love Americans. I think, like my country, you're a great country with flaws, and people know what those are. I think that Trump's style of leadership is chaotic by nature. I think probably quite often deliberately so. I mean, you said a very interesting thing recently on your podcast, your excellent podcast, The Pivot with Kara Swisher. You said that you'd gone from thinking Trump was incompetent on economics to saying, and this is your quote, "I believe he's purposefully creating massive market volatility such that him and his insiders can make billions of dollars in market manipulation and insider trading." And that on his meme coin offer, you said this is arguably the biggest grift in modern history. I mean, it's a pretty striking thing to level at Trump, that he's creating all this global chaos purely for personal gain. Given that when I've interviewed him over the last 20 years, I can't think of a single interview where he's not mentioned A, the way that China in his eyes has been ripping off America, and B, that tariffs are not a very effective weapon to restore America's economic power. So it's not like this is the first time he's talked about this stuff, but you genuinely believe it's all just a way to make himself personally richer?
Well, okay, so I'll acknowledge I suffer from Musk derangement syndrome. I also suffer from basic pattern recognition. He has taken tariffs up or down 50 times. 50 times, taking markets way up, way down. And the net effect, as far as I can tell, is one deal with the UK where we're getting some aerospace technology and Aston Martin engines for 10% tariff versus 15%. There has not been a single deal of any material value struck here. And then the morning that he announces huge tariffs that take the markets into one of their biggest one-day declines, his top cop, the Attorney General, sells her Donald Trump media stock. Zero-day options volume has been the days he takes a tariff up or down. Basically, insider trading laws are no longer in effect. When he can open a Swiss banking account in the form of a meme coin the Friday before his inauguration, and people can put money in or take money out, and nobody knows, and just 10 wallets made billions, while 70 or 80,000 lost billions in the subsequent weeks, we have a level of grift, insider trading, or what used to be considered insider trading and market manipulation, the likes of which we haven't seen. So wouldn't he be stupid for him and his cronies? Autocracy is based on the following. You punish your enemies, you threaten lawsuits against them, you announce tariffs against them, and you make your allies billionaires. It seems like there's additional options trading and market participation right before he announces these tariffs going up or down, because the net effect for America so far has just been a damage in our reputation. They had to send out a letter the other day telling nations to come to the table. This guy is literally the worst poker player in the world. He announces 145% tariff against China, and before they even respond, he reduces it to 30%. It's like showing up to a poker table, going all in with bluster, and then before anyone can respond, saying, I fold. The whole world is saying to America and the Trump administration regarding his sclerotic, reckless, and quite frankly, stupid tariffs, the same way Logan Roy responded to his children in succession, you are not a serious people. All of this has done is reduced our reputation and created incentive for other nations to reroute their supply chains around us. And there are discussions, but they're not happening between America. They're happening between Japan, South Korea, and China, who for the first time in decades are talking about economic agreements. I had dinner with the CEO of Alibaba in Europe, who is touring Europe and selling the Baba Cloud into European companies who are working with AWS. Kevin, you want to see a reduction in the revenues of your small and medium-sized businesses? Let us continue to damage our reputation globally with a series of nonsensical tariffs, reductions, increases. Our brand, the U.S. brand now means toxic uncertainty. No one knows how to plan their business against this man who goes up and down. So he's either stupid and doesn't understand economics, see above every tariff in history or every tariff policy, or he has decided, I know, I'll take the markets up and down and let the people close to me and who support me trade in this and make billions.
Okay, so this guy just lost any semblance of credibility he may have, at least with me, because he's just blatantly lying about the tariffs. Like the whole China situation. He only brought those tariffs down when they entered negotiations. He didn't just one day wake up and decide, I'm going to drop the tariffs to 30%. No, it was when it was announced that a Chinese delegation was coming to the United States to negotiate trade. They both agreed simultaneously to reduce the tariffs by 115% on both sides. This guy's just lying. And then the whole insider trading thing. You cannot, I am sorry, you cannot make the argument that it's insider trading, right? You could say it's market manipulation, sure, kind of. But he is also issuing these tariffs for a reason. For negotiative tactics. That is why. But you can't say it's insider trading because Donald Trump is announcing every single time he's about to make a move on tariffs. Therefore, anybody that's paying attention to what is going on can just move their money around in the stock market to compensate. Anybody that has any money in the stock market could make lots of money off of this. As long as they know what's going on, as long as they read the news. And that's all you got to do. You don't need insider information on this. All you need is to read the news and pay attention to what's going on. That's it. You cannot make the insider trading argument. That is a null and void argument. It is stupid, it is ridiculous, and it is deranged with Donald Trump. These people are, like I said, he's lost all credibility with me. But let's keep going and see what other nonsense he has to spout.
Well said. I actually do want to end with this. I want to read to you, Scott, a quote from Kevin on X and just get your very quick, and I mean just several words, whether you agree with this statement or not. Spoiler alert, I have a feeling you're probably not going to. Kevin said, yep, I said it. Hi, I'm MAGA is the new mating call in the dating jungle. Trad wives, alpha values, and patriotic dating apps are flipping the script in deep blue cities. And to know what's hotter than a swipe right? A MAGA man with money. Let's talk about it. Scott Galloway, do you concur?
First off, really enjoyed this, Kevin. Thank you, Piers, for bringing us
That's
together.
been great.
I've wanted to meet Kevin for a while.
Yeah.
Women are attracted to men for three reasons: their ability to signal resources, 2, their intellect, and 3, their kindness. The far right, to their credit, saw the problem with struggling young men and went into the void. Unfortunately, they conflate cruelty and coarseness with masculinity. And unfortunately, on the left, our advice to young men is act more like a woman. So there's a mating crisis, but instead we need to celebrate and lift up our young men. But the underleveraged way to attract a woman is through kindness, and the far right does not demonstrate that right now.
I just wonder, who is this far right that he's talking about here? Because he mentioned MAGA in the same breath. You think MAGA is far right? You think Donald Trump is far right? Now, I know the far left is saying that he's far right, but, the same thing could be said, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When you're sitting well into the deep left, everything from your perspective looks far right. Because the left has gone so far left, they've left the playing field. They're no longer even in the same ballpark that we are, that everybody else is in. You think Donald Trump is far right? He's not pro-life enough for pro-lifers. Yeah, he doesn't want to abolish abortion rights. His stance on abortion is safe, legal, but rare. He said, I don't know how many times, that 16 weeks is a pretty good cutoff. That's pro-choice, folks. Donald Trump is pro-choice when it comes to abortion. Sure, he's hawkish on the border, but once again, it's not a far-right position. The far-right position would be no immigration whatsoever. Lock down the country, for goodness sakes. Donald Trump's position is no illegal immigration. He wants legal immigration. These are not far-right positions. I'm sorry, but these people are deranged with Donald Trump, and they've taken the position that he's far-right when he's not. He's a centrist. He's been the most moderate candidate ever since he came down that escalator. He was much more moderate than Hillary Clinton. As a matter of fact, Hillary Clinton was pro-border wall in the Obama era, which was, oh, hang on just a second, one step away from the Donald Trump era. Yeah, so was Obama. Obama was the deporter in chief, but he never had, dozens of nationwide injunctions stopping him from deporting criminal aliens, did they? Did he? No, he didn't. At all. These people are insane, and you're being fed a line from the corporate press that their whole narrative is Republicans are always bad, regardless of facts, and Democrats are always good, and sometimes we might not even mention Democrats when it's, politically advantageous to not mention Democrats. It's insane. Everything is just always being pushed in that single direction. And once again, he talks about pattern recognition. Well, he only notices a pattern when it's politically advantageous for him to notice a pattern, is biased pattern. I happen to notice a lot of patterns. Maybe I'm biased too. I always say that all the time. I am biased. Everybody has a bias. If anybody tells you that they are unbiased, including CNN, they're lying to you, folks. CNN definitely has a bias. They are bad. But the thing is like MSNBC, we all know MSNBC is really, really bad. They are as far left as you can get. But the problem with CNN is a major problem. The problem with them is that they come off, they try to tell you, oh, we're fair and balanced, we're unbiased, we're objective. When that's just not the case. They're lying to you. They're manipulating you. Just like this guy. Just like most media is. Most media. There are a lot of YouTube channels out there that are just anti-bias, if you will, and what that's meant to do is point out the manipulations, point out the bias of these people who claim to be unbiased, point out the lies about Donald Trump, the lies about Republicans, the lies about Democrats. Yeah, the lies about Democrats. Yeah, we point out lies all the damn time, right? Like the thing with Cory Booker, for instance. They say that Elon Musk did a Heil Hitler or whatever, and then refused to say the same thing about Cory Booker. My position on that is neither one of them did it. Neither one of them Heil Hitlered, for crying out loud. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's petty. And it's just nonsensical. And the media should be ashamed of themselves for promoting this type of garbage as news instead of promoting actual news, what actually happened in reality. Instead of promoting the actual narrative around what Doge was doing, all they did was cherry pick certain aspects of what was going on and present that to you, and then left out the rest of the story. Like all the fraud, the waste, the abuse. And what they brought you is the suffering. Sure, are people going to suffer? Yeah, when you have a network of charities that are scraping tax dollars right off the top and enriching themselves, yeah, we're going to have problems with that. That needs to be shut down. This government cannot function when it's wasting or when it's spending $1.8 trillion more than what it takes in revenue every year. Year over year over year. Donald Trump, outside of COVID, had a less than $1 trillion deficit, which was par for the course. I mean, that was about what Obama's deficits were. They've been running these deficits for a long time. COVID came through. Donald Trump's last year and into Joe Biden's first year. It's $3.3 trillion. That was because of COVID. That was because of that $2 trillion stimulus package that everybody got. And what did Joe Biden do? Instead of saying that was sufficient, Donald Trump got the economy back going and everything is moving along just fine, Joe Biden said, no, we're going to do another stimulus package. That's right. He did. And ever since then, his deficits were almost $2 trillion. Year over year over year. Never reduced the deficit, never reduced government spending, only increased government spending, and has put us in such a bad position that we have to make drastic cuts to Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. Yeah, we need to make cuts to Social Security as well. We need to make reforms to these programs so we're not outputting so much money on these programs. We need to make massive reforms to our appropriations for the federal government. We need massive reductions in force. This is what Donald Trump is trying to do, trying to save this country, trying to knock out the deficits. And the only thing that Democrats can do is present hypothetical suffering to you guys and say Donald Trump is evil. Instead of trying to say that, look, this is going to make people suffer, sure, give you that, but also at the same time, give you, look, this is going to bankrupt the country if we do not do something about this. But they don't give you that side of the story, and I think that's BS. It's nonsense, and it pisses me off till no end. Because why not? Sure, you want to make bleeding heart Democrats get on the side of the corporate press? Give them the suffering, but you got to give them the facts that go behind this, that we're going to bankrupt the country if we continue spending in a deficit all the way into oblivion, for crying out loud, because that is the path that we're heading on. And Donald Trump saw that and said, look, we got to stop this. Something has to freaking change. I just don't get this narrative. Why are Democrats so pro-destruction of America? That's what they are. When you look at all of their policy positions in totality, they are pro-destruction of America. They tell you, hey, trans your kids. What does that mean? What is that going to end result? High suicidality rate and sterilization of those kids. Oh, you should have an abortion because that is your right. That's insane. When we're in a replacement crisis. It's a death cult. That's what that is. All while tugging on your heartstrings. Emotional arguments should be from political debate. But they're not. That is all Democrats seem to bring to the table. And it's nonsense. It's utter nonsense. And what's so bad is the corporate press has such a big voice that it's hard to shut down those narratives. It's really hard. It really is. But, you know, I do what I do, folks. I think I'm done on this one. I want y'all to do me a favor. Smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. That is the #1 way to help me out. And I definitely need y'all's help. And if you really, really want to promote this channel, do me a favor. Look right below the video and click that join button. Sign up. Become a member. Help me deliver the best possible content I can deliver to you guys, because we've got to get the message out there that, look, you're being lied to. I'm not going to tell you I'm unbiased. I'm fair and balanced. I try to be. I do my best. But I am biased. Alright, I do lean a little bit to the right. But it is what it is, folks. We've got to push back against this narrative. We've got to push back against this one-sided, this lopsided nonsense that we're getting from supposedly fair news organizations. It's BS. That's all it is. But I want to thank everybody for watching. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.